motivational speaker. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Podcast. Today my guest is Nicoline Huizinga. Nicoline is a certified human design coach, speaker, and author of the books Aligned Energy and Flick the Effort Switch. Nicoline ignites the fire in professionals by helping them to embrace their unique skills and talents and to take action on a personalized strategy based on their own human design so they can have a successful career on their own terms. Hello, Nicoline.
Hi, Beth. Hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. Really
You're,
happy to
s-
be here.
you're so welcome. Nicoline, you work with professionals. I would assume that includes like business owners, entrepreneurs,
Absolutely.
um, basically anyone who has a job that wants to be more successful in their career.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
And you help them by using their own human designs. Now, a lot of people have heard of human design, but a lot of haven't. So, in a nutshell, can you tell me what is human design and how does it work?
Absolutely. So, human design is a personality tool, it's not an assessment. That's the biggest difference compared to all the other tools that are out there. And it gives you basically your own user manual. And it is a combination of spiritual learnings and science. And that's where it gets really interesting for me, at least to see evidence of how it works, because it's a combination of modern astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, the Hindu Brahman chakra work, and quantum physics.
Oh my
And
God.
that combination gives us, based on your date of birth, time of birth, and place of birth, it gives us a beautiful and spot on blueprint of how you're wired, how you operate, how you take decisions, what your strengths are, what your vulnerabilities are. And it basically is a great guide through life, through business, through your career. And I think it's one of the best tools that are out there. And of course, there are other great tools, but I think this is really spot on, and it's helping us on a journey of a lifetime, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love that it's scientific and spiritual put together and when you said quantum physics, I was like, oh, that's really, I have no idea what that is really,
Yeah.
to be honest. I don't know if you can shed any light on that in a nutshell.
Well, quantum physics in itself is like a huge thing, but I can tell you how it translates into human design. First of all, astrology is like one of the oldest sciences out there. And I know there are a lot of people out there now who are like, ooh, astrology is woo-woo, it's weird. But the all the ancient populations, they used the stars to navigate, the seas. They used there are many buildings based on the position of the stars, and there are wonderful documentaries around it. So first of all, astrology is one of the oldest sciences, but quantum physics, what quantum physics does in human design is that it measures the energy that the planets send to Earth. And we know the moon and how the moon influences the tides, and all the other planets that are out there send out energy, and which are called neutrinos. They send out the energy to the Earth. And what happens on your day and time of birth and place of birth, obviously, because it's important where you are in the world, that the energy from the planets influences your being, and not only on the day, time, and place that you were born, but also 88 days before that. And that's how it plays out in human design, that the energy, and we can measure energy, right? Energy is like electricity, we cannot see it, but we know it's there. And it's the same with energy. And that's how the quantum physics element plays in human design, that we can measure the energy of the planets. And of course, the sun is the biggest, but all the other planets send out energy to the earth and to the specific time and place that you were born. And that's how you get this beautiful, I would say, combination and blueprint of energy and elements that play out on the day and time that you're born, and the creation of your personality. And that happens 88 days before you're born. So it's a
Interesting.
really intriguing way how it all works. And even though and there are many other people who can explain it much more eloquently than I do right now,
You did a
but
great job.
this is how I explain it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and you mentioned astrology appearing to be woo-woo, but if you've ever seen any of those astrological charts that they do, when, when they do,
Oh
when
my
they read your
goodness.
chart, that is pretty scientific looking
It
to
is.
me.
It
And
is.
and as far as the energy coming from planets, well, I believe they discovered that the pyramids are all lined up as well,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
With that
Yeah.
planetary energy.
There's a wonderful documentary on Netflix. I cannot remember the name right now, but it's all about how uh, ancient buildings were made according to the position of the stars and the moon. And it's incredible, and it's everywhere in the world. It's in Indonesia, it's in Egypt, it's in Mexico, and it's they really have evidence of that. So
Yeah.
there's
And
nothing woo-woo about astrology.
exactly.
We
Other
can
than when
agree on that.
the effect on those buildings is there's a lot of spiritual energy
Absolutely.
inside them, right? So
Yeah,
that just shows
absolutely.
you how science and spirituality are kind of one and the same in some ways, almost.
Yeah,
Two sides
absolutely.
of a coin, perhaps.
Yes.
Um, so I was going to ask you when how do you approach, somebody who comes to you for help, and do you is it like a reading, like an astrological reading type thing, and you present them with a chart or something? How
Yeah.
does it work? Okay.
Yeah, so there is amazing software out there
Mm,
that can help you to create your own chart. It's all for free. You can find it on my website. You can find it on any website, basically. There are great websites out there that you can get your own chart. So what I do when people approach me, and basically those are people who are stuck. They don't know how to move on. They have tried a lot of things and nothing really worked for them. So basically, people are, I would say, tired of everything they've tried. And then they hear about human design, and it's for them, I mean, my clients anyway, they are like, oh, that could be the answer. And then we always start with a reading, and the reading, it sounds like, a woo-woo thing, but it's very practical. We go through their human design. So I pull their chart and I create a full report for them, and it describes how they're wired, how their energy flows, whether or not they have a consistent energy. It describes how they take decisions, how they communicate, how they interact with others, how introvert or extrovert or ambivert they are. Um, all these elements. How do they collaborate? How do they relate to other people? Do they get impacted by other people's energy on all kinds of levels? So that's what we discuss, and then they first have the knowledge of themselves, about themselves, to and it's, I don't tell them anything new, because they know this. My
mm,
clients know this, and I think everyone knows this, in but because we only get distracted by what other people tell us, But we know as children, as young adults, we know what we're like. We know what we're made of. And all I do is I help people remember, and I help them to reconnect to what they already know about themselves, or perhaps they have forgotten a bit, they got disconnected, they got impacted by other opinions, by other rules. And that's what we call conditioning in human design. So people pick up a lot of conditioning over the years, but I help them to bring them back. I always bring them home, basically,
Yeah.
to who they are at the core. And that's the best bit. And of course, that takes a bit of time, because I cannot change that overnight. And it's not up to me to change anything. It's up to my clients to change. And I am their guide. I am their mirror, and I help them to see the patterns, and to basically address the things that we discussed in the reading. And then we apply those all those elements to their career, to life, to business. And it's incredible how fast things can change once people really start leaning into who they were meant to be when they were born.
Right.
So it doesn't change over time. Your design doesn't change like DNA. It doesn't, your DNA, or your skin cells renew every, I don't know, a few weeks, few months.
Mhm.
But that doesn't happen with human design. You're born with a human design. But what happens, like I said, we pick up conditioning because our caregivers, our parents, our friends, things happen in our lives. We create opinions, we create beliefs, and that's what we start acting on. But once we really can reconnect to the core, things can really shift and change.
It must be kind of liberating in a way to find this out, that these and that it's pre-wired
Yes.
in a way, whatever which way you are.
Yeah.
It's there's nothing you can do to change it. There's nothing, or not that you'd want to, but there's, it's not something that you can wreck or ruin or
No, no,
or make a
no,
mistake about. It just
exactly.
is. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it must be very refreshing to either be surprised by what the core thing is,
mm,
or um, relieved that it's what you thought, maybe.
yeah. The thing is, what people, I always tell people, nothing is broken,
Yeah.
nothing needs to be fixed. You're perfect the way you are. The only thing is, you didn't know, or you couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And what I do is show you, like, this is how what you're made to be. But stress, frustration, anger, gets created when we try to be something that we're not. So when we look at human design energy types, as we call them, or archetypes, for people's references, when you are, for instance, when you're a projector, which is one of the five energy types, and you as an entrepreneur, you live and you hear all about the Nike slogan, just do it, just do it. And that's exactly what a projector shouldn't do. But as an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, but I need to take initiative, and I need to get out there, and I need to do this and da da da. But a projector doesn't have as much energy as a generator or a manifesting generator. Those are other energy types. And when
Hmm.
you start acting like one of the energy types, you get a burnout situation, you get exhausted, you get frustrated, and it just doesn't work. And then people bang their heads against the wall, like, I'm doing exactly what people tell me to do, and it's not working. Why isn't it working? And then we talk about their human design. I'm like, this is the reason why it's not working, because it's not, this method is not made for you. And then they're like, oh my goodness, and it's when they really start leaning into their design. And that's a feedback that I get a lot from people. It's like, oh, you've really given me a permission slip to be me.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's such a relief. And of course, it's very, very often it's very emotional for people because they knew they were different. They knew that it didn't work and it wouldn't work for them, but they pushed and they did it anyway because everyone told them that it would
Yeah.
work. And it
And
didn't.
it's not, don't be the I think the other thing is don't beat yourself up for having not seen it, right? You get to
Exactly.
a point in your life, you go, well, I wasted all this time
Yeah.
uh working on this other doing trying to do it this other way, and it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
But everyone does it.
I did the same
Yeah.
before I knew human design. I did everything the gurus told me, launching a program, running a challenge, sending emails to your list. I did everything and it just didn't work. And I was like, what am I doing wrong?
And you probably didn't enjoy it very
No.
much either,
Not at all.
right?
I just pushed through because I thought, oh, but this is what entrepreneurs do. You just power through, and you're tired, you're exhausted. Yeah, but this is the price you pay for running your own business. But it doesn't have to
It's
be
like
that way.
that just sounds so defeating, doesn't it?
It
This,
is. It
oh, I have to
is.
pay a huge price? Oh dear.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way. And
Yeah.
when people really start to work with their human design, they're like, oh my goodness, it's so easy. I'm like,
Mm, hmm
I know.
hmm And do they find that the opportunities miraculously open up,
Yes, yes,
because they're now in kind of like a receiving mode
yes.
as
It's,
opposed to resisting?
it's all about energy. It's all
Yeah.
about energy. All we need to do is fully lean into our talents and skills and get rid of the resistance that we feel towards the flow that is waiting for us. And the thing is, we think we know, and we think we want to do things in a certain way because everyone tells us to do it in a certain way. And then by doing that, we're forcing it. We're really forcing, like, no, but this is the way to do it. But there is an easy way. But we don't trust that because as a society, we believe that in order to be successful, you really need to work hard and it needs to be exhausting and you need to pay a high price, to be successful. But it doesn't have to be that way. It
And there's
can
so
be a lot
much,
of people.
yeah, so there's so much thinking that goes on, like, well, that's not for me, that kind of success is
Yeah.
not for me. Well, wait a minute, maybe it actually is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
So
that's
cool.
conditioning as well. I
Yeah.
mean, when you're surrounded by people who tell you like, yeah, but this is the only way you can be successful, then you start believing it, right? And unless you come across something else that's like, oh, but that's a really different approach. And
Yeah.
very often people don't believe it. No, it cannot be easy. Oh, this is another another scheme of, it's easy and I show you 6 steps to 6 figures, da da da. Well, that's definitely not what I do.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely. And those things are all based on what somebody else had success with, which has nothing to do with you, you know,
exactly,
unless you're the
exactly.
same type of person.
Yeah, and that's what I love about human design. When we look at it, it's really your blueprint. That's what we're looking at. When I'm not telling you like, oh, but this worked for me, so this is what you should do too. It's
Right.
like, oh, let's have a look at your design. Ah, okay. So you're a manifesting generator, and people have told you all your life you should niche. You should only pick one thing. It's the worst advice you can get as a manifesting generator, by the way. But then people, it finally makes sense for them, like, oh, I always knew this, but now I get the validation that it's right. All those things that I already knew, that I already felt, it's one big validation. And like I said, permission slip to be yourself.
Exactly. I would imagine that this works for just about any type of
Absolutely.
career, work,
Yeah.
whatever niche.
Yeah.
So, let's use me as an example, if we can
Yeah.
do a quick example. So,
Yeah. Sure.
how could I use, as a web designer, how could I use human design to create the very best product I can for my client?
So, what would help, first of all, is that you know your own human design. So, I don't know if you know.
I know
Um,
the manifesting generator part.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So, what you know as a manifesting generator, and this is, just scratching the surface without having seen your chart, manifesting generators are multi talented, multi passionate, and they are incredibly quick. So you know really quickly when you talk to a client and they are like, yeah, but this is what I want, then you are like, okay, you're great at finding the shortcut.
Mm,
So like, okay, we need to do this, and then we're done. Whereas your client may not be as quick as you. So they will be like, wait, whoa, whoa. I don't really follow. Tell me, please slow down a bit. So that's something for you to be aware of. You're a manifesting generator and you can see all the elements. And that's the great thing about being multi passionate and multi talented because you do websites, you do a podcast, you do many other things, I can imagine. So you can advise them on many other elements, not just a website. So that's something that you can use in your positioning that, of course, you build websites, but you can be an advisor for a full package when it comes to positioning yourself, branding, photography, perhaps. I don't know. So that's first of all for you to understand how do you operate. Then second, with your clients, it can be really useful to understand how are they wired? So, for instance, a client, and I'm getting a bit technical, when you look at the body graph chart, the chart that you get with human design, and you see the top two triangles are white in the chart, it means they have an open head and open ajna, which means they are open to other people's ideas and other people's ideas to execute the ideas. But it also means they are easily overwhelmed. So when you come with too many options, they will be like, "Ooh, I cannot choose. This is really hard." So, what really helps if you know the design of your client and you see those two are white, then you're like, okay, I need to limit the options to three. And then when you know, for instance, that your client is a generator or a manifesting generator, it helps a lot when they have to take decisions that you ask them yes or no questions. So I'll give you an example for with me, my top two triangles, the head and ajna, are undefined. They are white. When my husband asked me, what would you like to have for dinner tonight? I'm like, I don't know. There are so many options. I cannot choose. I cannot choose. So if he asks me the what question, I cannot decide. But if he gives me two options to choose from, like, would you like rice or would you like potatoes? And I'm like, okay, I know. That's easy. Same for in business when a person asked me, like, what would you like? I remember when I worked in a corporate job and they always asked me, where would you like to be in 5 years' time? I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. But if they would give me like, is this something that you would like to be in 5 years' time? Then I would say yes or no. And that's so much easier. So for you, when you know that your client is a generator or a manifesting generator, asking them yes and no questions when things need to be decided will really speed up the process.
That's
So
awesome.
so knowing and these are just a few examples
Yeah.
uh, that you can
But
use.
Yeah, you're totally right. 'Cause, I usually find myself saying, "Oh, and you need to do this with your photography, and you should do this with these other things, and make sure you have this, that." And the person's, depending, sometimes they're like, "Oh, yeah, I understand all that." And sometimes they kind of glaze over. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it would
yeah,
be handy to know which one
yeah,
I'm dealing with, of course.
absolutely. But
Awesome.
also using this as one of your, I would say, unique buying reasons for your clients, that they don't just, between air quotes, get a website. They
Yeah,
get like full advice on how do you use the website, how do you position yourself, what's your branding like, what are your
yeah,
colors,
yeah,
etc. So
yeah,
you bring the whole palette, I would say, to help them show themselves to the world.
yeah.
And that's a big difference from just a website builder.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned that you were in corporate at one time. How did you end up pivoting over here to human design?
Well, I had a corporate job in a training and coaching company. Excuse me. Um, and that was, I was trained as a coach. I was trained as a trainer, and that was really a great time because I learned a lot in a kind of pressure cooker. And at some point, I worked there for 16 years, and and like it always happens, at some point you're like, am I still want to do I still want to be here? And then independently people started saying to me like, why don't you start your own business? I mean, you've been here so long, you can do this as your own business. And when one person tells you that, you're like, yeah, right. And then the second and the third, and then at some point you're like, wait a minute, perhaps I should. And then I told my husband at some point, like, perhaps I should start my own business. And he was like, yeah, you should do that. It would be great. And I was like, oh, okay, wait.
Should have asked you earlier.
Yeah. So basically that was the starting point, and that's now 14 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That I started over 14 years ago that I started my own business. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, does your approach to this differ from other human design folks or not?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah. There are so many wonderful people out there who use human design as a practitioner, as a coach, and I absolutely love that because this is a tool that everyone should know about. So
Yeah.
the more people start talking about it, the happier I am
Yeah.
about it. However, what I use, like I said, I have a coaching and training background. So I use a lot of coaching tools combined with human design. I love making it practical. Like, okay, so we know about this or that element in your human design. Now, how do we apply it?
Right.
How do we apply it to your business? How do we apply this to collaborating with others? How do we apply it to great messaging for your business, for instance, in your marketing? Um, I use a lot of other tools as well. I use my intuition a lot, like what needs to be said, what needs to be addressed, and I use my 14 years experience as an entrepreneur. So it's a whole, I would say, like a menu that people can choose from.
Mm.
And that's the great thing. And that's also part of my design. I love learning. So I always learn new tools, new elements, new coaching things, new business tools. So for me, it's always changing and developing and growing. But I think the most important thing that makes me different from other people is that I really love to make things practical. I love to make things simple, because I don't believe that it's supposed to be complicated. And I think those two words, practical and simple, are the most important ones that describe me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, what would you say? So is that what you love most about the work? What lights you up the most when you're doing this?
What lights me up, first of all, is the moment that people realize I'm not crazy.
Mm,
I'm not an idiot. I'm not broken. I don't need to fix anything. This is me. And I've actually always known that. Those moments, though, when the penny drops, like, oh my God, I always knew that. Though that's so rewarding. That's so rewarding. Like, bringing them home to themselves. That's
yeah.
incredibly rewarding. Um, Second, what I absolutely love is when I can help my clients to fully embrace their design and fully apply all these elements, and that they see and experience firsthand that it can be so much easier. And that's those are great moments as well. And of course, when they really start getting the results in, that's, yeah, I would say the cherry on top. But it's
Exactly.
those first two things are things that last, and that's like a sustainable change that I can help my people with. I mean, bringing in money is that's not the hard bit. The hard bit is deconditioning from all the years of all the things that you picked up over the years, and it's fully embracing who you are. That's the hardest bit.
Right.
And then
And
once you've done that, the business results are, I wouldn't say easy, but a lot easier. That's
it,
not the hardest part.
yeah, the money will follow. The
Absolutely.
opportunities anyway will follow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, what's the first step for someone thinking, "Oh, I hadn't heard about that. That sounds like it might be for me." Should somebody go on your website and figure out their archetype, or what's the first thing to do?
Yeah. So what people can do is go to my website, and it's go.nicolinehuizinga.com/free HD chart.
Oh,
I'll
we'll
give
we'll
them,
we'll write it down for them.
yeah, absolutely. And there they can people can fill in their date of birth, time of birth, and place of birth, and then they can download their free chart. They can download a free report. And of course, there's an opportunity to buy a paid report, a more extensive one. And there's, of course, the opportunity to buy a full reading. But I would definitely start first with the chart. And don't overwhelm yourself with a lot of knowledge, because there's so much knowledge out there. And I would say, the most important elements when people start out with their human design, they know their energy type, they know their strategy, and they know their authority. And authority is their decision making tool. If you know these three elements, and that's a lot of work already, but when you fully understand that for you, then you've gained like 60-70% already.
Oh, wow.
So I would say that's the first step.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nicolene, the time has flown by, and I think we're going to wrap up now. Do you have a final message for everybody?
Yes. Stop buying blueprints. And start believing in your own blueprint, because you have, listeners,
Yeah.
you have everything that you need in you. You already have it. You may not know it, but you do. You don't need any external blueprint that tells you what to do. All you need to do is really tap into your own unique and beautiful blueprint. So please do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
for being here. It's been delightful and super informative. And I'm heading over there to your site now
Great.
to get
Wonderful.
my report and stuff. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Okay, we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Yes.